Welcome back to our special honoring the victims of COVID-19. Communities across the country are remembering the 500,000 Americans who we've lost to this cruel pandemic, such as in Atlanta, where families are covering a fence with pictures of a broken heart. Each picture, more than 5,000 in all, each one honors someone who died from the virus. In Idaho, Bruce Mason keeps his American flag flying at half-staff. It's been that way since last spring. He also plants a white flag in his front lawn every time someone in Idaho loses his or her life to the coronavirus. Joining us now is Rabbi Anne Brener. She's the author of Mourning and Mitzvah, a guided journal for walking the mourner's path through grief to healing. Rabbi, thank you so much for joining us, for honoring us with your presence. How do we move through grief and mourning and into healing? How do you get there?
Well, I think that one thing that we have to remember is that we don't get there quickly, that it takes time, it is a journey, and if we don't take the time to give attention to our grief and all of the ramifications of it, then we don't get the lessons that grief teaches us, and we don't really come out of it understanding fully what it means to be human.
Yeah, so I know grief is a healthy process. It's not something to be avoided, as you suggest. And you say it helps confront what it means to be human. Explain that to us.
Well, I think that all of us operate under the assumption that we're going to live forever. It's just impossible not to believe that, or that things don't change, and that we can count on things to always be the same. And in fact, what we've learned certainly in the last year is that things do change, and we can't really count on things not to. And so when we are affected by grief, when we lose someone who is very important to us, we have to find the tools to confront the fact that we too are mortal. And with it, take the time to learn what it means to be mortal. I think that so many of us have lived in a culture of denial for so long, and I think it's a normal thing. I think about after the First World War and the pandemic that came after, people rushed into the Jazz Age, rushed into the just the joy and the dancing instead of taking the time to mourn the grief. And after the Second World War as well, people were just overwhelmed by the losses in the war, in Hiroshima, in the Holocaust, and it was just too hard. People just sailed into a world of consumerism. The Jazz Age ended with the Depression, and this situation that we've come from has caused us to just consume and forget about the consequences of consumption, and to put things in the oceans. I think that a lot of the climate crisis comes right out of our denial. When we truly mourn, we learn that we are finite individuals on a planet where living things die. And when we confront that, we learn to treasure every day, we learn to be compassionate. There's a lot to be learned from our grief, and if we don't take the time, we don't get that healing.
There's a Jewish expression of condolence that I use every time I do an obituary on my show, which I've been trying to do one every day because of COVID. And the expression is, may his memory be a blessing, or may her memory be a blessing. What do we take from those words?
Well, I think in the first part of it, it says that, yes, mourning really hurts. And right now, when the grief is still raw, the memories of someone in their illness or the sudden death or whatever it was, and especially at this time when we can't even be with people when they're dying, those memories are not a blessing. But if we take the time to heal, if we take the time to truly mourn, then all of a sudden our salient memories are the ones that are healing, that are beautiful. The best example I can give of this, Jake, is that When I was 24, I lost my mother and my sister within 3 months, and I ran from New Orleans, which was the place that our family lived. And people said, "How can you live? How can you leave?" And I would say, every tree, every street corner has a memory. It's excruciating. And now when I go back, and I go back as often as I can, they ask, "What's it like to be back in New Orleans?" And I say, "Oh, every tree, every street corner has a memory." It's exquisite.
Before you go, Rabbi Brener, would you lead us in a prayer to help those in mourning?
Certainly, certainly. Holy One of blessing, we surrender to your compassion the many souls that have left us in this time of great suffering. May they be gently folded into the bundle of souls that find their eternal resting place under your wings. Healer of shattered hearts, give us comfort. Give us the strength not to rush into a new normal that looks just like the old normal, but to take the time to learn the lessons of grief. May you fill our broken places with the wisdom that only comes when we fully face what it means to be human. Help us to recognize the preciousness of each moment. Give us hearts of compassion. Teach us to honor the spark of holiness that we share with all of your creations. Turn the cracks in our aching hearts into vessels through which we channel your compassion and your peace into the world. And let us say, Amen.
Amen. Rabbi Brener, thank you so much for your time and your wise words.
Thank you, Jake. Thank you so much.